Ladies and gentlemen, I've done the unthinkable. Again, I've sold AMD stock, the artificial intelligence king. Well, aside from NVIDIA. So anyway, this video is going to be done in two parts. The first part is going to be why I think AMD is a fantastic company. And then part number two is going to be my DCF valuation model, and then also why I sold. So again, if you watched my Intel video recently, then actually you can skip to part two. So yeah, let's get started. As you can see, I sold my AMD stock for $77,400.72. And actually, I sold it back on May 29th. So this is the thing. This is on my Patreon account. I started this portfolio about a year and a half ago. And I purchased AMD near the beginning, actually. So I sold this at a 145% gain. I took the profits. I'm paper hands, Dr. Paper Hands. See? Nothing in them. Completely paper. So anyway, yeah. Big gains. I took the profits. And I'm going to tell you why I took the profits. But first, shout out says to like and subscribe. Now, here is the AMD portfolio. Here's my Patreon portfolio. So you can see it's done pretty decently, I think. So anyway, the AMD stock themselves, as you can see, the average cost basis was $68.02. So pretty nice game. Okay, so for the story behind AMD is Lisa Su. She is the rock star that saved AMD from bankruptcy. AMD was doomed to failure. So when she became CEO, Lisa Su did two things. Number one was she pivoted the company towards Zen. She scrapped everything else but Zen. Now what Zen did is it saved the company. It basically made, at the time, AMD on par with Intel and soon to surpass Intel in performance. So that was number one. And then number two is she actually spun off their fab business into global foundries. So AMD does not produce their own chips anymore. Intel still does. AMD does not. AMD actually gets their chips from TSMC. So yeah, those are the two big things that she did, the two big changes that she did. And she's still the current CEO of AMD because she's done so freaking well. So anyway, back earlier this year, Lisa Su predicted that AI CAGR is going to grow from $45 billion to $400 billion between 2023 and 2027. That is a 70% CAGR. That is huge. Just for reference, $400 billion is more than Apple's total revenues in 1 year. So this is just a massive thing. This AI is going to do something that nothing else has ever done ever. So it's going to be huge. So there's a lot of potential there, a lot of upside potential. So for AMD specifically, they're predicting that Zen 5 is going to have a 16% IPC uplift versus the previous generation Zen 4. What does that mean? That means for the same megahertz, for the same amount of cores, you're going to see a 16% gain just from the internal structure of the chip, improvements to the structure of the chip. Now, what does this mean? It means that the gains range from 10% for Far Cry 6 all the way up to 35% for Geekbench. So these are massive gains, actually. And then next month, this is actually from AMD's Computex meeting recently, last week. So AMD Ryzen 9 9950X is releasing next month in July. So the performance here is, this is AMD's top line compared to Intel's top of the line. Intel's i9 14900K. So the gains on productivity range from 7% to 56% in Blender. For those that don't know, Blender is a popular 3D rendering tool. In gaming, you got gains ranging from 4% in Borderlands to 23% for Horizon Zero Dawn. Again, these are AMD's numbers. Some of these are probably cherry-picked, so take it with a grain of salt. But they're usually pretty realistic in the numbers they release. So here we're going to move to laptops, ultra-thin laptops. So what we're doing now is we're comparing the AMD Ryzen AI9 HX370, yeah, say that 5 times fast, compared to the Intel Ultra 9 185H. I believe that is Meteor Lake. So you can see here, AMD just mops the floor with them, from gains of 4% to 73%, depending on the software. And Meteor Lake was kind of a misstep by Intel, and AMD's taking advantage of that misstep. Now, moving on in hyperscalers. So what hyperscalers are is, think of it, okay, actually look at the notes on the right. It says internal workloads. So what these are is these are the large companies that run their own data centers for themselves. Think of it like Facebook or LinkedIn or something of that nature. It's just a lot of internal processing for themselves. And they just released that AMD EPYC is the #1 CPU for hyperscalers, which means that AMD has surpassed Intel in this market. It's the first time I think AMD has ever done that in any market. Intel has always been top dog. Intel is the gorilla in the corner. So yeah, moving on. So in data centers, AMD's projecting a 33% market share. That's going to keep increasing because they're just kicking butt. I'm going to show that in just the next couple slides. They are kicking butt in the data center. So comparing Intel's top of the line to AMD's top of the line. AMD EPYC, the next generation EPYC, is going to release soon. And it's going to have 70% better performance than Intel's current top of the line. And one of the major reasons for that is the ultra high core count that Intel currently cannot achieve. And this is actually an AI performance. Okay, so this chart's a little tricky. Let me explain. Now, the Intel Xeon 818028C. Okay, so what makes up the vast majority of computers in data centers? Most of the computers in data centers have chips from 5 years ago. That's what this chip is. It's a 5-year-old chip. So what AMD is saying is they're making this business proposition. They're saying, hey, Mr. Data Center, what we can do is we can take 5 of your existing servers and condense that into one server that has even higher performance than those 5 existing servers and 65% less energy consumption, and also obviously 80% rack space reduction. That is AMD's sales pitch, and I think it's going to work pretty well. Intel did a similar sales pitch, but their ratio is 3-to-1. AMD's is 5-to-1. Okay, so yeah, moving on to artificial intelligence, the buzz of the world. So in artificial intelligence, AMD is switching to a one-year leap, 1-year iteration essentially, instead of 2 years. They're kind of copying NVIDIA in this area. So yeah, in 2023 we had the MI300X. In 2024 we have the MI325X. In 2025 we're going to have the MI350. And then the new generation, the next generation model, is the MI400 coming in 2026. Now in general, AMD is about a year behind NVIDIA. I'll go over that more in just a second. Now for AMD's last 5 years income statement, you can see it here. It did really well for about half of this. Now what happened in 2022 is the client PC market crashed. It crashed harder than it has ever crashed before in history. It was a record-setting crash. So that's why revenue income stopped growing in Q2 of 2022. It was a combination of that and then also now gaming slowing down. So those two sort of huge headwinds. But AMD is now, we're getting out of that now. I'll show that in just a second. So in the last quarterly results, as you can see here, data center skyrocketed 80% for AMD year over year to $2.237 billion. Client is up 85% to $1.368 billion. So you can see right here that the crash is basically over. AMD's out of that, and it's just client is profitable again. Oh yeah, going back to the data center. Data center makes up artificial intelligence, EPYC, and other such things. So that includes their server processors. And actually, EPYC itself was also up 80%. In comparison, for Intel, Intel's data center was only up 5%. On the other hand, NVIDIA's data center is up over 250%. So you got 5% on the one hand, 250% on the other hand for NVIDIA. AMD's kind of in the middle. So they need to improve in data center to catch up to NVIDIA's massive gains. As I mentioned before, gaming is going through a down cycle. So gaming's down 48%. That's going to correct in the next generation. Once the PS5 and the next Xbox launch, those numbers will improve. Embedded, that is these Xilinx that AMD purchased. So embedded's down 46% due to inventory issues that will resolve soon. Now, if you look at the Wall Street ratings, Wall Street rates AMD a buy at an average price target of $188, which implies a 17.77% upside. Okay, so this is part 2 of the video. This is what you're here for. This is what I think differentiates me from other finance YouTube channels, is that I give you the goods. I give you the numbers. I give you the spreadsheets. I give you everything. Everything I have, I give to you. A little late. If you want it on time, you have to join my Patreon. But yeah, I give you the goods. You'll see. So yeah, to start off with, what drives this DCF? This is my DCF valuation model. What drives this DCF is Lisa Su's prediction of a 70% CAGR, again from 2023 to 2027, from $45 billion to $400 billion. Okay, so historically for AMD in 2018 had $6.4 billion in revenue, growing to $23 billion in 2022. Now, please note, I did this DCF valuation model back in January. This is prior to that. This is prior to the end of the 2023's quarterly results. They had not come yet. Q4 2023 had not come out yet. So all I had for history was 2022, because 2023 still had one quarter that was still estimated. Yeah, you can just read the numbers here. I don't need to go into them in too much detail. Okay, I go back into the data center, going from 2025 to 2027. I'm using Lisa Su's 70% CAGR. Now for 2024, I'm also using Lisa Su's then prediction of $3 billion in data center. Now, yes, I know she recently raised it to $3.5 billion, but again, this was January, and that had not been in yet. In January, it's still $3 billion. So yeah, I have a data center growing from $3 billion in 2024 to $43 billion in 2032 for AMD. Now, just for reference, $43 billion is over 10% of Apple's total yearly revenues. That is a massive number. Here it is in graph form. Now for client, I have client growing at a slower pace than data center. The primary reason for that is that client is more of a zero-sum game, meaning that for every share that AMD gains, they have to steal from Intel. And due to that, it's just harder to grow client like it is artificial intelligence, which is a brand new, blue ocean. So for clients, it's just a little bit more difficult due to the heated competition from Intel. So AMD has to keep, pushing that one harder to keep gaining market share. But the thing is, you can only get to 100% market share. And the PC segment only grows, so much per year. Once you get to 100%, how much growth is there really? Going on to gaming, I have gaming growing at around a 10% annually. Now, the thing about gaming is I can't really time the cycles. Due to me not being able to time the cycles, I just made a flat 10% throughout, just to keep things simple. I don't like timing things when I can't time them. For embedded, likewise, I can't time those cycles, if there are cycles. So I have embedded growing at about a similar 10% growth rate. Please note, in 2021, that was prior to the purchase of Xilinx. That's why the number was almost zero. But yeah, moving on. The whack-a-mole chart. my favorite chart. Okay, maybe not my favorite, but it is very important. So the biggest thing to note here is the beta. What the beta is that is AMD's basically how much their volatility is compared to the S&P 500 to the general market. So basically AMD is 65% more volatile than the market. I pulled this from Yahoo Finance. So what that means is that the higher the beta, the higher the WACC. The higher the WACC, the higher the discount rate. The WACC is the discount rate in the DCF. So basically, the more volatile the company, the lower the valuation is going to be, because you have to pay for, the company has to pay for that volatility with a lower valuation. Now, with all those numbers given, I have an applied share price for AMD. This is my base case of $177.02. Now, today's share price is $166.06. This gives us an implied upside of 6.6%. Now, let me reiterate, I love AMD. I love the company. The company's going in an awesome direction. Lisa Su is kicking butt. Their products just kick butt, especially the X3D products, the 3D V-Cache. Those are amazing products. They are number one in gaming CPUs by far. So yeah, they're just kicking butt on all cylinders. The only thing they need to improve on is really AI, artificial intelligence. My estimates are that NVIDIA is going to have 90% of the AI market. AMD is going to have about 10%. Those are my current estimations. But yeah, things can change in the future. If they do, I will let you know. If you're on Patreon, I'll let you know right away. That's the difference there. So yeah, Shammai says to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Now I'll see you in the next one.